Okay, so from one excellent presentation to the next. Agentic to autonomous, where cybersecurity stands in the face of AI. So this session charts the industry's journey from today's assisted agentic systems towards the North Star of level 5 autonomy, self-defending networks that operate without human intervention. So it will cut past the hype and look at the real indicators at this transition. The rise of deep research capabilities, the shift from measuring detection speed to measuring outcome validity, and the new digital exhaust that defines machine-led operations. It'll also dig into why democratization of offensive AI demands a fundamental reshaping of defense and what it means to navigate the uncanny valley of autonomy, where complacency and loss of control become the biggest risks. And to talk you through all of that and more, please join me in welcoming Alex Levinson, CISO for Scale AI.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you. I was here last year. It was my first time in the Middle East. It has been a wonderful experience. I welcome all the hospitality. It's been just fantastic. When I started to talk with Tom and team about coming back next year, the world changed so much in 2025 that I felt it would not be appropriate to not come here and give an update on where it is in this race. So I'm sure that everybody here has heard about how we can secure AI systems. Everybody here has heard about all the ways in which AI is helping cybersecurity today. The conversation I started last year will continue here in the next 20 minutes. How do we get to the world of full autonomy with AI? What does that look like, both from an offensive and defensive perspective? And where are we at on that journey? How do we get there even faster? So, today, we're going to redefine autonomy. We're going to look at our definition from last year, see how it lines up. We're going to look at where we've come in 2025, and we're going to see where that leaves us moving forward. So, quick introduction on my part. My name's Alex Levinson. I'm Scale's Chief Information Security Officer. I have been at a number of companies, done a lot of work in my time. Professionally, I am more offensive minded. You will see me give a lot of offensive examples, but I'm a defender day to day, and I defend some of the largest companies in the world, some of the largest governments, keep their data secure. I recognize the threat that we're all facing, and I want to find ways to help us. In my prior life, before I was a professional, I was playing at CTF on the other side of the room over there. I got my start hacking video games. The game hacking village is near and dear to my heart. I really got excited about the idea of autonomy when I was a kid, because getting around video games by hacking them, building bots, was all about building autonomy in those games. As I came up and started to get into the world of competitions and CTFs, I recognized that autonomy and automation is ultimately what drives success in these operations, whether you're doing offensive or defensive operations. The ability for you to press one button and execute your entire plan and vision simultaneously is just unparalleled and will automatically make you a winner in those environments. I've done that for 15 years in competitive spaces. I continue to do it today. And a lot of the research and technical work that has gone into that has formed my opinion and the basis of my research here. So, to recap from last year, I still believe in autonomous cyber. I believe there will be a world where agentic and autonomous agents are effectively conducting cyber operations offensively and defensively. I believe that will come. Last year I said it was mostly sci-fi. It's a little bit less today, and we'll get into why. 2025 was in fact a major milestone for us this year. Let's redefine that a little bit. So, we can look at our board, our levels. The world of autonomy really exists very similar to self-driving cars. I was in the self-driving space working on autonomous vehicles for a long time. Scale has a large amount of business in that space. It's something we've worked on for near to a decade. The world of getting a self-driving car is not a binary discussion. You're always evolving it. You're always making it better. But this has been very well defined in that world. It's not been well defined in our world. I try and make that definition here and lay out the levels of what are cyber autonomy. I think for us, where we stood last year was very much in this level 2 realm. Level 2, meaning we had co-pilots, we were using inference to help us make classifications. I think all of us have played around at this point with ChatGPT and other tools, but everything I saw in the world was generally around this notion that a sprinkle of single shot influence was gonna help us everywhere. I don't think that was wrong. That was just the value promise that we all could see and feel in front of us. Single shot inference or a chatbot where a human and a model were teaming. There was a lot of limitations on that. We will get into sort of my properties of autonomy, but complex decision making and goal-oriented behavior were almost non-existent at this time last year. We had limits around model architectures. Our context windows were quite limited. You couldn't just shove all of the logs in your SIM into a model and ask it a question about your logs. So a lot of the world of cyber autonomy existed hypothetically, even though we knew the road in front of us was going to be there. So where have we come in this journey? I think let's start with a quick refresher around what has changed here. So in 2025, there were two major breakthroughs in the world of AI, not in the world of cybersecurity, in the world of AI, that I think are enabling and setting the stage for us to build this autonomy moving forward. The first being reasoning models. The idea that we can use chain of thought and long-running, kind of behind-the-scenes notions for models to figure things out that maybe weren't necessarily explicit, go through some sort of reasoning steps to come up with a better answer. That evolved into a full production idea, and I would argue that it's probably the dominant architecture of model that you're using today in your chatbot and your co-pilot usage. That same type of reasoning, though, can be turned around and used for cyber agentic purposes. That is, we'll get into kind of how that lays itself out, but having that effective scratch pad and a model having an internal monologue is something that at this time last year just did not exist and was certainly not in the hands of cybersecurity for applicative use. The next major breakthrough that we had was deep research capabilities. Now, deep research, to everybody in the audience, probably is a button that you push on your co-pilot to say, hey, I want you to go do a bunch of research, go look at websites, go gather a bunch more information that maybe you didn't have in your training data set to help me understand whatever I'm asking you, whatever my prompt is. That type of capability, fundamentally, I believe, is the most prolific deployment of agentic utilization that we've seen in the world of AI. The notion that the chatbot is going to use its chain of thought, scan for corpuses of information at its disposal, go out, reach out, grab those, process them, think of different questions it might need to ask, go get different research lookups, find more information, enrich itself to a point where it can have confidence in answering your question. That's a fundamental shift from where we were last year. Last year, you would ask Claude a question, Claude would sit down, internally process it, effectively run it through that sieve that is the inference model, and give you an output of tokens. We now have architectures in production that we are all using for just everyday work that are giving us these agentic and reasoning capabilities. This type of breakthrough is what really fundamentally led the shift in 2025 from an AI capabilities perspective, and that is going to open up doors in the cybersecurity space. So last year, I defined these properties of autonomous cyber. I said, if we were going to have a level 5 red team operator, if we were going to have a level 5 security engineer defending a corporation, what would it look like? What are those properties that we need to have there? And running through these, let's go one by one and kind of just make sure we're level set. Independence of operation. We needed the ability for an agent, an autonomous program, whatever we want to call it, we needed the ability for that to run independent of human intervention. We could say that computers have done that for a long time. If I write a script with a bunch of while loops and while truths, that could run infinitely. But is it making continuous progress? Is it doing what it needs to do? In the world of AI, that was not yet achieved. And I think we've made a lot of progress this year. We'll get into that. The next being adaptive context understanding. This is where every time we're in that iterative process while we're going through independence of operation, the model and the harness that's running that can self-orient. It can find ways to understand what has changed in its environment, how that change actually can be reprocessed, repurposed, and put forward towards redefining, reshaping its goals and outcomes. That gets into complex decision making. Is it thinking about risk? Is it understanding the outcomes and goals that we're trying to do and be able to solve those, maybe anticipating before it runs into stoppers? So if you think in the case of a pen test, if you've got an autonomous agent that's running through, it gets a shell on a machine and then just starts scanning the internal network through to look for a pivot, did it consider beforehand that there might be network monitoring software looking for scanners that would shut it down? That type of complex decision making really was something that we didn't have the framing for last year in really any context. Leads into goal-oriented behavior. If you're having a long-term vision of, I'm trying to conduct this offensive operation to break into a target, or I'm trying to defend my network from all threats, big and small, that's a large, that's a very, you could break that down into 1,000 steps that many people could do every day. And ultimately, defining goal-oriented behavior is something that, again, we were putting tokens into a model and getting tokens out. There was no concept of goals. And then transparent reasoning, the ability for us to audit what that decision is in a sound way. I think as we look through this and we go through these one by one of how we've changed this year, independence of operation, we've seen a lot of nice changes. So no longer is it about just runtime, it's about resilience in the face of friction. The models being able to, as they're going through their reasoning, through chain of thought, they're able to understand what decisions will keep it running versus what decisions could potentially not keep it running. We have new benchmarks that we didn't have last year around intervention rates and remote labor index. These are two benchmarks that are industry standards for measuring this that didn't exist. I think when we look at adaptive context understanding, this is fantastic what we've seen this year. So MCP has been, I think, something that was a toy when it first came out that I was like, oh, that's interesting. But every standard, every sort of, I go look at DNS. Look at how DNS has evolved in the last 30 years. It's taken time for us to build on top of it. We've all had to adopt it. We all do now. We take it for granted. But there was a time when DNS wasn't the given name system by which we would address things on the internet. We had to all come to consensus in it. I think that the rate that we've all adopted MCP into our tooling, and that our partners and vendors are adopting MCP into their tooling, dramatically has increased the rate of our ability to have adaptive contextual understanding within our models and the harnesses that are powering them. I am almost moving beyond the notion of a context window into the notion of a context mesh. I think that sort of paradigm shift has been fundamental in 2025, and I'm excited to see sort of how the next phase of integrations actually come out through this. Complex decision making has been, there was this book I forget the author, in 2011 that really was talking about psychology and sort of how people make decisions. You're either a system one thinker where you're quick, intuitive, kind of an emotional based decision, and then system two thinking where you're thinking very logical, you're processing your thoughts. This is where chain of thought really comes into play, and that notion of the ability to do agentic deep research for models has just opened up the can for system two thinking in a way that was not possible this time last year. So we're now measuring outcome validity. Did we solve the crime? We're no longer just moving on to accuracy. And if you look at the state of the AI industry and how it's benchmarking itself, things like computer use benchmarks, things like the Exciting benchmark are great examples of, we're no longer measuring, did a model know what year the Morris worm hit the internet? We're measuring whether or not the model is capable of performing outcomes. That is not just an evolution of the model, that is the evolution of our ability to test that. Certainly a fundamental shift from where we were last year. So I've got to be honest, last year I stood on stage and I said that goal-oriented behavior is basically an unstudied area. I meant it at the time. I live in the heart of AI. Scale works at the nexus of almost all the biggest AI companies in the world. I saw no demonstrable progress towards us having a cyber goal-oriented capability at this time last year. I was wrong. I don't want to say I was wrong. I've been pleasantly surprised in 2025 at how the world has shocked me in expanding and opening this capability up. So 2024, not implemented. AI could not hold a long-term goal. Between the agentic capability to kind of continuously have that independence of operation, as well as the adaptive contextual understanding, we now have opened this door for goal-oriented behavior to at least start to get researched. And I think that is fundamentally, like, we're not there. We're not just now at level 5 autonomy, but we've set the stage to where the capability of the underlying AI technology exists for us to start developing advanced cyber use cases that help us move down that chart towards that goal of level 5. Transparent reasoning, I think you see this when you use these models now. You see the chain of thought. You can see the thought log of these models. That's exactly the type of transparency evolutions that we needed to see out of models, because if we don't have that as we're building our cyber use cases, we're not going to be able to prove that this was this just a fluke because it's a probabilistic system, or was it something that was actually well thought and grounded in reality from the model's understanding. I think that begs the question ultimately where that leaves us. So I think in 2025, we have a lot of new tools in our arsenal. We've got new metrics. We're measuring outcome validities. We're understanding not just what the model knows, but what the model can do. That is a shift that we should take forward, that the AI industry certainly is taking forward, trying to help AIify the world. But I think as cybersecurity, we need to take that and really understand that. I anchor on this though. Propensity score is something that Scale, the company I work for, has done a lot of studies in. How likely is a model to choose a harmful action under pressure? This is a weird anthropomorphic concept that we kind of put onto models. Yes, they're code. Yes, it's this digital construct, but models tend to not perform well when you put them in very challenging, emotionally hot positions. We need to understand why, because cybersecurity and rapid response, both offensive and defensive capabilities, are going to be high stakes, high pressure situations. We need models to perform in that. And so our research shows they're not good at it. We need to find answers to that. And then intervention rate. This really comes back to the independence of operation. How quickly, how much do we have humans intervening in these models' actions? So at this time last year, we were sitting at a level 2 firmly. We had co-pilots, we had assisted triage, we were using single shot inference to make decisions in our applications. I'm sure every vendor in there was selling you a product where they had wired up an inference API to accomplish some AI enablement to your security product suite. Great. I'm sure there's value in that. But where are we at now? I think we can confidently say we've moved into this level 3. We are using agents to handle specific tasks. We are more human on the loop. Thanks to the field CISO at Anomaly for Normal for giving me that on the loop connotation. I appreciate that. That on the loop notion, I think, is very profound today. And as I look at what product offerings are existing, what are coming out, where's frontline research, not just in security, but in AI in general, this is the motion we're at. But what do we need to get to? I still don't believe we're at a place where AI is replacing a tier 1 SOC operator or a tier 1 pen tester. There's a lot of companies out there that want to tell me otherwise. I would love to see it, but generally I don't believe we're there. I think it's still a lot of agent-specific tasks with some glue together. Now, ultimately, where are we trying to get to? We're trying to get to that full autonomy, where agents are doing entire self-defending for large enterprise networks. We've got end-to-end attack planning and executions for offensive operations, and that there are generally no humans in the loop for the 24/7, 365 activities of these programs. I think in retrospective, if I were to look back this year and say, what have I learned? I would say I underestimated the AI industry's iterative approach to where it was going. I think I thought they were kind of stuck in this single shot. We needed to make significant improvements to, say, the transformer architecture, but the model companies have pulled, innovation out that has really proven me wrong in that sense, and they've provided us pathways to these higher levels of autonomy. NCP and integrations went much faster than I anticipated they would, and the context window size increased greatly with models. We saw that across the board from every major model vendor. I think for us, the path to level 5 really lies in this cognitive architecture, in improving models' understandings in cybersecurity context, safety under pressure. As we move into this agentic world, the notion of agentic identity is going to be front and center. How do we have the identity constructs that we provide to humans every day? How do we give that to agents? So the notion of agentic identity, I think, is very key. And then resilience to adversarial noise is an area of research that I'm interested in, that my team at Scale are working on. So to wrap up, I still believe in autonomous cyber. 2025 was a major milestone towards that. There are new frontiers in this, ultimately continuous rapid adoption of integrations to fill those context meshes of our models, building these agentic test beds for us to develop agentic cyber capabilities, and then agentic trust are the things I'm focused on moving into 2026. With that, thank you so much.